Samurai Ronin's Path, a critical review. For years, we the devoted, the patient, the ones who seek the perfect parry and the honorable death have had our titans. Games like Sekiro and Ghost of Tsushima have been the unchallenged masters of the digital dojo. But a new challenger has just entered the arena, a small indie title clad in a beautiful art style and armed with the promise of a true, unforgiving Ronin fantasy. Samurai Ronin's Path just launched on Steam, and to say the initial reception has been divisive would be an understatement. It promises a journey of blood and steel, but the question is, does it have what it takes to actually stand alongside the giants? In this deep dive review, we're going to break down every core mechanic, from its visceral combat to its deep-seated technical issues, to see if a new master has finally been forged for fans of the genre. At first look, Samurai Ronin's Path might look familiar. It's an action game that places you in the straw sandals of a masterless warrior in feudal Japan. The goal, as ever, is to carve a path to victory. You wander through misty forests and fight for your life in dilapidated temples. But to call it just another Souls-like would be a profound understatement. This game is a love letter to a very specific fantasy where complexity and atmosphere aren't dirty words. The core gameplay loop is deceptively simple: explore, fight, and upgrade. But under each of these pillars lies a staggering ambition that separates it from its more mainstream cousins. Where some games abstract, Samurai Ronin's Path specifies. This isn't about just spamming attacks. It's about understanding that the single, well-timed parry is more valuable than a flurry of desperate swings, creating a fascinating logistical puzzle from the very first duel. The game deliberately refuses to hold your hand. The tutorial barely scratches the surface of what's going on. This is a game that throws you in the deep end, expecting you to learn by doing, to fail, to see your Ronin fall, and to come back with a better understanding. It's a design philosophy that will be immediately familiar to anyone who's ever mastered a punishing combat system, but it also erects a significant barrier to entry for the uninitiated. Now, let's get to the heart of the machine, the system that will either make you fall head over heels in love with this game or run screaming in terror: the combat. If you're a fan of Sekiro's intricate posture system, prepare to meet its intense, if somewhat clumsy cousin. Samurai Ronin's Path treats swordplay not as a sidebar, but as a central nervous system of its experience. It's built on a foundation of parries, special abilities, and finding that one perfect moment to strike. When it works, it feels sublime. Successfully deflecting a desperate combo and responding with a decisive finishing blow provides a spark of satisfaction that few games manage. However, the execution is where it falters, creating an experience that feels inconsistent and, at times, fundamentally unfair. The primary issue is the pervasive lack of responsiveness. There's a noticeable delay, a certain mushiness between your input and your character's action on screen. In a game that demands split-second timing, this input lag is crippling. You will constantly find yourself questioning whether you mistimed the parry, or if the game simply failed to register your command, turning what should be a skill-based challenge into a frustrating guessing game. Enemy attack patterns further compound this issue. Many standard foes attack with lightning speed and little wind-up, making reactive play nearly impossible and forcing you to rely on prediction. When you're facing more than one enemy, these problems cascade. The camera struggles to keep all threats in view, and you'll often get hit by off-screen attacks you had no way of anticipating. This constant series of frustrating trade-offs is where the combat model struggles, creating a narrative of difficult choices made not for strategy, but to compensate for the game's own shortcomings. Beyond the flawed combat and beautiful landscapes lies the shadow empire of this game, a world of technical problems driven by what feels like a shocking lack of optimization. If the combat is a duel on uneven ground, the technical performance on PC is an uphill battle in a blizzard. This is, without a doubt, the game's most significant failing. On our test system, well above the recommended specs, we experienced severe and frequent frame rate drops. The moment more than a couple of enemies appear on screen, the game begins to stutter and hitch, turning intense fights into a slideshow. Early player reports, especially from the Steam Deck community, paint a grim picture, suggesting you have to gut the game's visuals just to get a semi-stable frame rate. The options menu is shockingly bare bones for a PC release. Basic, expected features like an FOV slider are completely missing. The mouse and keyboard experience feels like an afterthought. For a platform defined by customization and performance, this port feels restrictive and poorly executed. When you spend more time fighting the settings menu than the enemies, it drains all the potential fun out of the experience. So, we return to the question we posed at the beginning: is this a path worth walking? The answer, like the game itself, is complex. For the casual action game player, For the person who enjoys the streamlined, accessible progression of a modern AAA title, the answer is a resounding no. Its interface is clumsy, and its refusal to simplify its systems makes the learning curve a sheer, unforgiving cliff. It's a game you have to earn, and many will not have the patience for it. But for a specific type of player, this game might be a flawed gem. If you are a veteran of the genre, if you hear the term jank and feel a sense of morbid curiosity, if you believe that the soul of an indie game lies in its ambition, then Samurai Ronin's Path might just be the interesting failure you've been looking for. Its artistic vision is astonishing for what appears to be a small team effort. The idea behind its combat is a refreshing change of pace, even if execution is lacking. Samurai Ronin's Path doesn't dethrone Ghost of Tsushima because it isn't trying to sit on the same throne. Tsushima is the popular monarch ruling over a vast and accessible kingdom. Samurai Ronin's Path is the new, brooding prince of a niche, but fiercely loyal city-state. It is a demanding, frustrating, and artistically beautiful machine of a game that treats the Ronin fantasy not as a grand epic, but as a cruel and complicated engine. So, my final verdict is this. If you are a veteran action fan who appreciates raw ambition, can tolerate extreme technical issues, and finds joy in wrestling with flawed mechanics, you might want to check this game out on a deep sale. It is a love letter to a certain ideal, and a potential cult classic in the making. If you are a more casual player looking for a polished and responsive adventure, I would advise you to perhaps watch some gameplay videos first to see if its brand of brutal complexity is for you. Samurai Ronin's Path is one of the most exciting, challenging, and deeply flawed games to be released in years, provided you are its target audience. It is a testament to the fact that ambition, vision, and a little bit of old-school punishment can still create an utterly engrossing, if infuriating, experience. But that's just my analysis after dozens of hours fighting input lag and off-screen enemies. I want to know what you think. Is this level of ambition a welcome challenge or a frustrating barrier? And what other games out there scratch that same itch for a hardcore samurai experience? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. And if you enjoyed this deep dive, consider liking and subscribing for more reviews of the most interesting and ambitious games out there. Thank you for watching.